Welcome back to another episode of Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here. We're flipping the lid, looking inside to the stories that have shaped some of the most significant and successful people who are creating impact in this world. And this man and I connected, I don't remember if it was this week or the end of, I think it was just 2 days ago. It was like yesterday, maybe. I'm losing track of time, but we had such a connection and such a fire conversation. And I had such a incredible time getting to know who this man was by the way he interviewed me. His heart, his questions, the way that he pursued the dialogue showed me the depth that exists in this man, not just in his mindset, but in the way that he approaches life. He's literally always looking for ways to get people to understand that they can go win at life and create the way they want to live. We just have to find a way to get some of the noise and the interference out of the way and simplify life so that we can live and exist in it. The way that he navigated the conversation with me as his guest demonstrated to me the way he leads his coaching clients, the way he leads groups, the way he leads entire rooms as he delivers keynotes to change and shape organizations to see things more clearly. And so I couldn't be more excited to feature him with you, because what I also know is that he's a family man. And that was one of the first things that we talked about. So I talked a little bit about what he does, but the way I see him in delivering that is just as this genuine, connected, authentic, warm human being. And JM, brother, I'm so happy to have you here.
Ryan, I appreciate all those amazing, kind words. And it is true, brother. When you meet somebody for the first time and you're like, yep. And as I told you, I'm like, we're going to hang out. I don't know if you like that or not, but it's going to happen. So
you didn't even give me a choice. You're like, bro, I'm making you hang out with me. I was like, okay, JM.
It's truly assuming the sale on you, because I'm like, there's special human beings that you meet, and it doesn't happen all the time. So when it does, it's like, yep, I'm going to hold on to that dude because he's awesome. And it was such a cool show experience. And just like I told you, man, I have a bit of envy. Your communication of what you're saying, so many similarities, but I love what you guys, the way you talked about it with flipping the lid and the garbage. And I was just like, dude, I'm in. This guy's awesome. So anyway, it was a great time and fired up to be here.
Well, dude, and what I want to honor as well for our audience who's listening to you, go listen to that episode, because JM actually got open, real, and raw with us, and we got to flip his own lid on the show and have a conversation that had meaning, which was really cool to demonstrate just how we could navigate life. And it doesn't have to be so complicated. You know, you talk about how rare it is sometimes to find that connection with someone, that like instant rapport. You know it's going to be there. You know it's something in the future. You just know. How early did you become aware of your ability to trust your instincts in moments like that and really be able to start to hone and listen to what your voice was, given all the noise the world threw into it?
Such a good question. And it's been a process for me. So here's what I would tell you. In business, it has been a long evolving process where I'm like, I'm not that sharp sometimes, because I believe everybody when they say, I like surface, I'm like, yes, and I'm in because you said it. I'm like, I believe you. Personally, I see through it way faster. I have for years, where I'm like, no, dude, that's bullshit. Like, no, that's not who you are. Yeah. And I'm not trying to judge, but I read energy. Mm-hmm. What happened with you, brother, is you came on, and even though we have a screen in the way, I read energy, and I was like, all right, this dude's real. And then you start talking, and I'm like, all right, I'm really in. And now, because I believe in showing up as you, right? That's my deal, is be vulnerable, be yourself. And you did that so well. I was like, all right. And here's what I've learned. When you find someone like that, when you find somebody that you're like, you're my dude, you're my person and you're going to be in my life, I don't ask. I'm like, guess what? We're going to be homies. We're going to hang out. That's just the way it is. And it always kind of goes the same way. They're like, all right. And it's like, it's a little awkward for the first time when you're like, I'm going to be this vulnerable, and hey, we're going to do stuff together. We're going to do business together. We're going to go on these trips. And they're like, I just met you. But look, when you find somebody that's that unique and you really enjoyed their time, don't waste it. And don't be afraid for them to say, no, we're not. I don't like you. Okay, cool. And had you said that, I would have moved on, but you know, a little pain, but you know, it would have been fine.
But here's the thing, you know, your directness and your boldness and your conviction in your belief of who you see people to be because of your ability to read beyond the surface, right? You have learned to pay attention to the energy, the micro expressions, the little moments that might actually show lack of congruence in someone's life. And by you being bold in stating your truth around what you see and what your intent is, I would argue that you're just leading people to a protected and connected space where you're like, look, I see the value in you and I want to continue to invest in this relationship because although I don't have any idea where it goes and I have zero expectations, what I see in front of me is something that I desire in my life at a greater degree. And I just want to make sure that that's known. A lot of people never say their truth or speak so boldly and convicted. And so how early in your life did you learn to speak your truth with almost disregard for how the person is going to respond? Because you're like, fuck, if this dude doesn't want to hang out with me, I mean, I'm still going to try to pursue him and then we'll see what happens. Like, relentless.
Yeah. So whatever that shame bone is, that like shame or worry or give a shit what anyone thinks, I didn't get it. My mom will tell you from jump, I just have never cared what someone else thinks. Look, I want people to like me. That's not like, that's a human thing. I do want people to like me, but if you don't, I'm okay with that. And so it started really early where I was just like, look, here I am. Now, there was a period in my like mid 20s where I lost that, where I started to really put a mask on and try and look this way. And I actually kind of cared what people thought. And it sucked, man. It was like so much energy.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not fun. I don't want to do this anymore. So I just went right back to how I've been the majority of my life. But it is so funny, brother, because reading energy is this interesting thing because you don't ever want to be a cynical dick, right? You want to be but when somebody sucks and they are showing you like the saying, listen to what people say they are because they're telling you who they are. It's there. And I just let people tell me. And when you come through as authentic and here I am, which you did, I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to let this dude know we're definitely going to hang out. We're going to do stuff. And no matter what he says back to me, I've said my truth. And it's, you know what it leads to is really authentic, fulfilling relationships so much faster. And there's another guy who, by the way, I'll connect you because Tommy Breedlove, I did this to him. We did this show and I was like, all right, send him an email. I'm like, we're going to do business together. And he's like, dude, I literally met you for 5 minutes. I was like, I know, but I know who you are. And we have, and he's such a good dude. So I just don't want to squander an opportunity because look, we could do a podcast and then you do mine and then we go about our merry way. I have a lot of those. But when you find somebody that you're like, yep, that's my person, that's somebody I want in my life, don't be afraid to say it. And if you get rejected, that's okay. But at least put it out there and know that you gave your best effort.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned the word mask, and I know that we've got some correlating terms. I talk armor, you talk masks, right? Proverbially the same thing in the way that people experience it and what they're protecting or hiding. You also talked about how shame didn't really affect you. And what I think is fascinating is what I hear you talking about from shame is that you never were constrained by shame because of fear of judgment, whether you were living too big or living too small. You still very clearly articulated, though, that you do have a desire to be seen and understood and to be connected at a really deep level. And so despite the fact that you don't care what others think, it's because you know who you are and you've put in the work. But I'd love for you to talk about that dynamic that exists between like, okay, I know who I am and I want to be seen and understood and connected, but I also don't really give a fuck what anybody thinks about the way I live my life because I know who I am. How long did it take you to really be able to integrate those two things and know which truth you were living at any given moment?
Yeah, man. I'm going to tell you a story because it'll be interesting to see if it lands. So I love to dance, right? I grew up dancing. My mom and my brother in the basement. Michael Jackson.
Yes, are you kidding me? Oh, I have to say, dude, I'm like one of those MJ junkies. I like love all the old school Jackson, the Jackson 5, all of it. Sorry for the. You may have to dance before the show's over, but keep going.
Happy to. But here's what's fascinating, brother. So I love to dance. It makes other people happy when I do, because I'm a 6'5", 250-pound white dude that can move. And that's not all that common, where it's like, oh, brother's got some soul. Like, but here's what's interesting. I went through this period where, because I grew up in Montana, it was all about being humble. Don't make it about you. And so I went through this period where I wouldn't go dance because I didn't want to make it about me. And my wife is like, what are you doing? She's like, people really enjoy when you dance. I was like, no, honey, I don't want to make it about me. She's like, you're actually being extremely selfish right now, because these people want you to dance. It makes them happy. And so it's this weird, like, again, 2 years of my like mid-20s.
Such a beautiful catch by her, though. Like,
dude, she's brilliant. And she calls me on everything. Now, she has permission. I've given her permission.
Yeah.
Call me out.
That's so beautiful.
And it was because she's like, you're being selfish. And it's happened twice in my life where people are like, you're being selfish. And when I thought I was being selfless, they're like, no, dude, you're being so selfish. And so I don't know, again, if that answers exactly the question you asked, but that's what came to my mind is, look, if you do something, you have a God-given gift, or you have this something you're good at, share it. Don't be selfish. Share it. Don't think that you're taking over or doing something. Share it, because that's a gift. You were given that for whatever reason, I was able to do that. I enjoy doing it. So share it. And it's funny, man. I don't know why it happened, but there was a period where I didn't, and it sucked. I didn't like it. I felt weird. I was like dancing in the corner instead of just being out there and just going. And that's so from the rest of my life, I've just committed to going, man. If I hear music and I want to dance, I'm going to dance. I don't care how awkward it is for anybody else, because I don't care. And it's like, it makes people smile and laugh, even if they're uncomfortable for me. It's like, I don't care, man. I'm having a good time.
Favorite Michael Jackson song to dance to?
Ooh, I'm a big Billie Jean fan.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? It's not a dance, but every time I hear Man in the Mirror, and it's not a dance, but I can't help but just something takes over my entire being, and it just makes me happy. I'm not a big Thriller guy. I know some Michael fans, that's blasphemy, just not. And then just because I'm seeing the video, Bad. Every time I hear Bad, I'm like, oh, Smooth Criminals, unbelievable to dance to. So I gave you like 4. I don't know which.
You gave me some gold, bro. And so we're just gonna sit here with Michael Jackson for a second, because I think he deserves this moment, and I think you and I both do as well. This is incredible. Okay, so I have to say, the only one that came to mind, other than the one that was on your list, was Beat It. And Beat It, I just love, but I also love that Weird Al Yankovic converted it into a song called Just Eat It. And I got to introduce that song to my kids, because it was literally like, I wish I could rap it right now, but it's like broccoli, just eat it. Like, just totally and so it's like all the stuff that's bad. He's like, just eat it. Like, it'll make you feel good. And Weird Al, I don't know if you ever like listened to any of his old stuff, but he just was brilliant at being able to integrate that. So Beat It as a song, and I like to dance to Beat It, but it helped my kids eat food too. So, thanks to Weird Al for that.
Weird Al made a hell of a career out of doing stuff that was, I think he's celebrating these artists, right? I think that's what he was doing. And it's brilliant that he's able to do some of that stuff. It's so silly, but it makes me smile. So
yeah. Well, I figured you probably would have known Weird Al based on your fact that you like to dance and the era and all of that stuff. And so, dude, I absolutely love that. So I'm curious, your wife, you talked about that moment where she said you're being selfish. And it sounded like from the timeline and I want to make sure I'm getting this correct, it's around the same time frame that you were wearing this proverbial mask in your middle 20s. You talk about it was there, you never really suffered from it before, you finally hit a point you were able to pull yourself out. But what put you into a place that you felt you needed to hide behind a mask to begin with?
Yeah, so it was my first company. It was when I first became a leader, and I reading every leadership book under the sun. And so you get put into this position, quote unquote. And I thought, okay, I need to wear the suit and tie and be buttoned up and sound this way and look this way. And dude, I don't care what you wear. That's not the point. But I'm a t-shirt and jeans guy, just like I'm wearing today. And I'm super comfortable doing that. And at some point I started becoming the button down suit guy, and my persona started adapting to that. And here's the problem. We were making an insane amount of money at a very young age. So don't mess this up, right? Here's the problem. My relationships were shit. My wife and I were separated for almost a year. I almost lost my kids through this period, right? And it's like, why? We were growing good. So one area of my life is good and everything else sucks. And the moment I finally figured out, just be you, we grew way more, way faster, way easier. People are attracted to who you are, not who you're pretending to be. And I had never been that way. I don't know why it started, honestly, other than I think I have to be a leader now. I'm going to be this. And I became so robotic and not myself, and it wasn't attractive. And so it was nice to be separated, almost lose my marriage, be in terrible health, to realize, okay, that sucks. Don't want to do it again. Let's not do it anymore.
Yeah. You and I obviously share a very similar pattern in life. We talked about some of that stuff on your show. And one of the things that I really want to pause on, because for whatever reason with you, I didn't ask this, and I like to ask almost everybody. I don't have like a set list of questions. You can tell by the way we're navigating the show. Like, we're having fun, it's raw, it's real. This is what life is about. I introduced who you were in my words. I introduced who you were by the way I see you, in very little time and very little interaction. If someone said, JM, who are you? How do you answer that question?
I'm a simple kid from Montana who genuinely gives a shit about other human beings and wants them to live their best life. That's as easy and simple. Now, if you got a little further in, I love playing sports, love tequila, love my family and what that represents. But the first sentence would be, I'm just a simple kid from Montana who genuinely cares about others. And, I want everybody to live their best life. That's my purpose in life.
And your poor mother, you were a 12-pound baby. I mean, geez.
Naturally, man. Can you freaking believe that? She's a saint, and I should just thank her every day for making it through that one.
Dude, 12 pounds. Oh my goodness. Now, how tall were you when you were born? Because you're 6'5" now.
I'm not sure on that, brother. I don't know that. It's never talked about other than you were really big and really ugly. That's all. My mom's like, but I loved you. So thanks, Mom. I appreciate that. What's funny, though, brother, is I was born in Madison, Wisconsin. And apparently the week I was born, it was all preemie little girls. And then this massive behemoth of a and my mom fed me a banana the first day of my life, which kind of, it's the only food I don't like today. I don't like bananas. I don't like to touch them. I don't like to see them. I don't like to smell them for sure. And I think it started there. I think my mom cursed me with bananas because she fed a brand new 1-day-old baby bananas because I couldn't get enough milk.
I'm just envisioning like this little chunky Michelin white gorilla baby shoving a banana in his mouth, or getting a banana shoved in his mouth, and be like, no, I'm not doing this, and I'm never eating a banana again.
Something like that. My poor parents, man, they had me when they were in college. And so I literally, my mom talks about this. I slept in a drawer. That was like my dad actually had shut me in the drawer at some point. And she's like, I know he's ugly, but don't shut him out. Anyway.
Well, you were ugly. Your mom loved you. You were 12 pounds. Thank God for her bringing you into this world. Then you fast forward to your middle 20s, a mask goes on, and you talked a lot about the result of that period of time, but I'd like to slow down a little bit and describe what you were feeling and experiencing in that time before your world hit you in the face.
Yeah, it's weird to go back to that time because it seems light years away, and it's like it was a different person. There was
a different person, by the way.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, Brian, is there was a lot of drinking involved, like way too much booze after work, way too much work involved, like not coming home because I could have. But how was I feeling is the question that you asked. I was super unfulfilled. I was very lost in terms of, what do I want and why? Money has never been a big thing for me one way or the other. And then I realized that was kind of horseshit too, because I had some really negative self-beliefs about money. And so the first time I actually made 7 figures, which was during this period, I felt terrible. I mean, literally, I felt awful about myself. And so I spent the next better part of a decade working on that alone. Why do I feel that way? So yeah, man, it was a dark time. It was not, it was really unfulfilling, although I did some amazing stuff during that time. I traveled so much of the world and all that stuff, but I don't look back and go, yes, I ever want to repeat that again. And so, yeah, unfulfilled is the best way I could explain it today. And it is fun to go back and revisit, so you never go back there. But man, did it suck.
Yeah, and I mean, you wouldn't want to do it again, but I also have a guess that you wouldn't change it.
Not for the life of me. My wife and I have an amazing relationship today because of it. And all that pain and heartache that we both put each other through, because, I own my part and she owns hers. I'm so happy it happened. And it was horrible, man. Like, at some point, look, I don't know how many people I've told this to on the podcast. My therapist at the time said, how would you feel if she died? And this is my answer, brother. This is hard to say out loud. I said, I would feel bad for my kids. And my therapist literally stopped the session. My wife's sitting next to me, by the way. This is how much I loathe this person that I loved, had kids with, building a life with. And she said, are you kidding me? She said, really, that's the answer. And I said, yeah. It was the best thing that could have happened, though, because I realized how much I had lost track of who this person was. I wasn't even seeing her as a human being, for God's sakes. And it's crazy to think of now and how we ever got there, but it happened. And so it's wild, brother. It's one of those things that I will never forget, because I want that perspective. I want to wake up every morning and say, thank you. I love you. No matter how much I may not like her in that moment, I will always love her. And that happens frequently in marriages, as you know. You're not always going to like them, but you will always love them. And I had lost that at some point.
I really want to honor you for being so open and sharing that. It's one thing to talk about you weren't living yourself, you weren't living your true self, that you lived behind a mask, that you were numbing in certain areas, right? That's all easy to sit and say, yeah, I almost lost my marriage, I almost did those things. But for you to own a conversation you had in a private conversation with a therapist intended for the sole purpose of improving the connection and relationship that you have, and there was like complete, almost disregard for anything outside of yourself, and for you to have the ownership and vulnerability to reflect back what is really a damaging and hurtful comment. But it was your truth in the time, and you've never had a problem owning that. But I am so grateful that you said that. It happened the way that it did for a reason, created an awareness and a connection, I'm sure, that caused a lot of friction for a period of time. But holy shit, look at where you two are now.
Yeah, it's wild, man. There's a really cool thing that I train people on. It's the whole victim responsible thing. And I think it's one of those profound exercises that I was so fortunate to do, and I'm blessed to share it with others. When you can take full responsibility for everything that you've ever done, good or bad, it's such freedom that it's like, okay, you screwed up and it didn't go the way you wanted. And when you can own all of it, not when you're a victim of a crime, that's not your responsibility, but your responsibility to live life moving forward, not to live back in that moment. When you can do that, man, does life get so much easier and more fun. But when you want to play that victim role, brother, And I did. Yeah, let me tell you where I'm getting screwed. Let me tell you how she's not supporting me. Let me all the empathy and sympathy I was looking for.
Yep.
I realized, you know what, dude, it's on you. You did this. It was like, all right, now we can rebuild. And I think that's when it actually kind of made sense, because I'm trying to think of the exact moment during that really tough year being separated. But I think that was the exercise where I was like, oh, shit. Yep, I own this. This is on me, and it's also on me to fix it.
So you guide people through this exercise. Can you give us a little bit more detail, like either for yourself or as a general framework and understanding, right? We know that victimization and claiming victimhood for all the shitty things that have happened in life is a very common place. To your point exactly, there are pure and true victims, and I'm not trying to throw that out. There are people who are victims of things that they weren't wishing for, had nothing to do to create, and that's a different category. But to your point, you can choose whether or not to extract lessons from those situations and become aware of how you intentionally apply them in your life moving forward. So help us understand how you help move someone from a place of victimhood to the mentality to let's go win at all costs, no matter what.
Yeah, so if you had a sheet of paper in front of you, take a line and draw it right down the middle. On the one side, write victim. On the other side, write responsible. Now, normally this would take 45 minutes. We're going to do it in 45 seconds.
Beautiful.
I just want you to write down all the emotions that you feel when you're a victim. And it's going to be, I'm weak, no control, scared, fear, and it'll go, man. It'll just be negative, 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 negative. And then there'll be a couple positives, quote unquote, empathy, sympathy, people looking at you to give you love. Okay. Then you go to responsible, same, thing. How do you feel when you're responsible? I feel in control. I feel strong. I feel complete. I feel whole. I feel, and it's positive, right? And there's a couple negative ones, like I feel overwhelmed. I feel scared. But when you look at this list, and I tell any of my clients, I'm like, put this up in your bathroom mirror and then teach your kids. Because overwhelmingly, the left side, the victim side, is really negative. The right side, the responsible side, is really positive. So when you're choosing to be a victim, you're choosing to be weak versus strong. And no one wants to be weak that I'm aware of. I've never met somebody that's like, I want to be weak. That's what I'm looking to do today. I've never heard that. And it happens so many times throughout the day where you can be a victim or you can take responsibility. For instance, when I'm driving down the road, somebody cuts me off, and this pet peeve of mine is when people drive slow in the fast lane. And often I'll be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. Or my wife will say, are you being a victim? Yes, I am. Thank you very much. They don't have anything towards me. They don't even know. They're not even thinking about me. So why am I spending any energy on something I have zero control of? Take responsibility for your response. And so that's the idea. And that very exercise is like, wow, okay, that's pretty simple yet profound.
Yeah. It is extremely simple. And there are exercises that we walk people through that are very similar. And I just want to pause for a second and make sure that everybody really captured this. 2 sides of a paper, 2 lists. 1 side victim, 1 side responsible. List how you're feeling. I'd like to add a slight different layer of depth to take this exercise, I think, to an even deeper place for people. One of the things that often happens when we describe the feeling or the emotion is that we describe it as the feeling or the emotion, but we don't actually know what it looks like in our body. And so one of the things I actually want to help them embody and feel the energy, not just the recognition of the emotion, is what's physiologically happening in your body in both states, right? To your point exactly, when you're carrying that mask, when you're carrying that armor, it is fucking tiring. Right? It's not, you don't have a positive energy. You are not connected to things. You don't have a natural light. You can't tap into the abundant source. You are just being depleted. How does your body look in that situation?
I mean, dude, I'm tired. Yeah, even as you say it, I'm like, ugh.
Yet people choose to live that way by not taking the intentional aligned action to reclaim their truth and go win. So that's the basic exercise. I'm going to do that exercise after the show. I've never broken it down from victim and responsible. I think that's a unique lens to look at it through. And brother, man, that's a powerful tool. How often do you find yourself needing to use that with the people that you work with?
It's one of those core fundamental things that we will do, no matter whether you work with me for a year or a week, it'll happen.
Okay.
And there's always a moment where, often in our work, you're a therapist and they just want an ear, and you want people to be people want to be seen and they want to be heard. You want to give them that. But at some point as a coach, to get to a solution and really help, you got to empower them to say, all right, cool. Are you done? And are you ready to get started on building your life up? Because what do you want, right? Well, I want to, have an amazing relationship with my son. Cool. Do it. But in this mind state, as you talk about with that garbage and that trash in there, there's no chance of that. We got to get rid of that. You got to take responsibility for your actions, not what was done to you. That's the page, brother. Mm-hmm. That's the past, which, by the way, I've never met somebody that can change the past. Never in my life.
Or exactly create the future.
Or that. And it's amazing. Have you ever met anybody that is truly psychic or, knows what's going to be said or done? I've never met them.
I actually have. It's a weird thing, dude.
Okay. So somebody's truly clairvoyant. Like you've met this.
Yes, they are rare.
Okay.
But truly clairvoyant.
Wow. So that person never has to waste energy again because they actually know what's going to happen.
Doesn't mean they know everything. It just means they probably get signs around certain things.
So there's two things that have been just twisting my noodle for a while. That one is that the amount of wasted energy on the future. Mm-hmm. They're going to say this is what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Again, the person you're talking about, I want to meet them because I think that's fascinating. But how amazing would that be not to waste so much energy on stuff that never happens anyway, or waste energy on stuff that happened in the past? And that's one of the things. And then the other thing is perspective. And I think you and I briefly talked on this.
Briefly.
It's like, I want everyone to keep a level of perspective so that they can truly live their best moment right now, every single moment. And if you have real perspective, you can, but we lose it so quickly. And I really want to, and I think, you said, dude, if we can build that, if we can do that together, we are going to make a mint. We're going to, the billion people I know you're reaching out to, you're like, we will do that overnight if we could do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the two things that are twisting my noodle right now.
I love that you're also so open about things that actually twist your noodle, right? Things that still have you in like trying to deeper understand yourself and the overall human experience and advance your ability to read energy and people to be as valuable as you possibly can in every moment. And I love the simplicity at which you bring everything back to the current moment. That's another thing we have in common. I believe it's one breath, one moment at a time, right? That's literally all we can control is the breath right next ahead of us and the moment that follows it. And that's why we say the only thing real is the present. Yet we do know that the past, right, and the trash from our past surfaces all these treasures and things that actually get formed under all the trash pressure, because often they're the things that shape us as much as hurt us, shame us, or contain us. And you were able to articulate so clearly that you came into a period in your life to chase what the world had convinced you needed to chase. You had reached a level of income that most people still are like, oh my gosh, if I ever had that amount of money one time, let alone all in 1 year, it would change my life, right? You and I are not in a similar position. Both seven-figure earners at points in our life more than once. And it also led to both of our demise. And so what changed with your relationship with money and your relationship with success as the outcomes and results where your life was crumbling in front of you were not what you envisioned heading into that period? Like, What did you extract, and how has that shaped your perspective since that time?
Yeah. So the money thing specifically, and this is, I'm going to make it really simple, but it was a long process for me. I had to ask some really important questions. Why do I think this way? Is that true? Is this belief serving me or anyone that I care for in any way positive at all? And the answers were really clear, like, all right, why do I think this way? And then you start diving into, well, I remember Dad would say the pretty people were members of the country club. I don't know why being pretty was a bad thing, but it was. Or, these people have that. And money is just, it's an object. That's what's so funny. How we wrapped up so much emotion into something that is literally created, but I did, right? And so then I started thinking about, wait, well, my dad would talk that way. And then, hold on, Grandpa used to say these things too. Hold on, Grandpa was born on a, really tough situation back in the early 1900s. We're talking on Havre, Montana ranch. Think of the worst situation, getting the shit beat out of him. And Grandpa taught him that. So you're going to allow this thinking from almost over 100 years ago to be your present moment. I think the world has shifted a little bit. So maybe we shouldn't bring that all to the table. Okay. So that's, where did it come from? Is it true? Well, actually, no, that's not true at all. I'm actually pretty blessed and I can create all the wealth I want. Okay. Well, that's kind of silly. And is it serving me? No, money is a great thing. I can give other opportunities, just like Wyatt, you've given opportunity to him, right? Just like the hundreds and probably thousands actually now of people that I've been able to give opportunities to because of this object that I feared so much. So it's just asking those questions and getting quiet to say, is that true? No, it's not. And it's just some self-limiting beliefs that I adopted and I inherited. And by the way, it's not my dad's fault. It's my responsibility, again, not being a victim, to change it. And so hopefully my sons have a different outlook and an abundant mindset on this, and they realize all the amazing things they can create.
We're in such deep alignment. Again, there's so many similarities in the way that we view the world, see how the human experience is shaped and the ways that they're tied together. You articulated that so beautifully. The thing I want to extend to make sure that everybody hears as well is it's not only not your father's fault, it's also not your fault. It's also not necessarily your grandfather's fault. Right. And the reality of it is when we realize that so many of these things are so hard conditioned and generationally patterned into us that thankfully some of us become aware enough to realize that they're not serving. But I really want everybody listening to go back and listen to those questions. They are very similar guided questions to ways that we want people to challenge the narratives, both intellectually and emotionally, that exist in their worlds. And you did such a beautiful job of articulating that and the simplicity of being able to answer that question. What I also find is that why can almost be a never-ending circle of questions for some. And I think so often the difference between therapy and coaching is that our objective, like you said, is to help them identify what they can do about it versus go too much deeper than understanding the source and how they were shaped in those moments to challenge that truth. I'd be really curious, how have you guided people between the balance of both of those things so that they can see their truth for what it is without judgment and really move?
Yeah, man. The word empowerment immediately comes to mind because I remember early in my coaching, I would want it. So let's just say I'm coaching Brian on something and I want it more than Brian. It'll never work. And dude, I have dragged people along, pulled them, right? And it's like, that's not going to work, man. And so once I realized this is a control part of me saying, oh, let's do this, this, and this. Hold on. That's not your job as a coach. Your job is to see them, hear them, understand where they're coming from, and then potentially guide them. But here's the crazy thing. By asking these questions, providing a resource, a thought, just kind of reframing the way they're looking at it, and then allow them to go do it. What's amazing is how brilliant so many of our students are. They just need it unlocked. They need someone to talk to them and tell them. I'll give you a really quick example. There's someone I'm working with recently, and she's tied up a lot with money. And so the question of wealth came up, and I said, well, are you wealthy? And she said, no. And I said, well, what's your definition of wealth? And so she goes right down the financial path. And I said, look, let me show you all the ways that I see the wealth in you. Incredibly healthy, beautiful relationships with her kids, amazing career. Like her wealth is abundant, but she was only tied up in this one part. And the moment I said, just reframe the way you look at wealth, I'm not saying we're not going to create some wealth. Look, you have all the abilities and skills and talents to do it. You're not quite there yet. And you'll get there just by shifting some mindset. Immediately, you should see how her world opened up. And now she's creating this income because now she believes. So I hope that answered your question, brother. But it was really an empowerment thing that I had to learn as a coach is you can't want it more for them and you can't do it for them. Right? You just have to be a guide and really show them a different way of looking at things.
Well, Man in the Mirror is obviously one of my favorite MJ songs too. And I think it's because you and I understand the power of reflection and our ability to read energy and actually reflect back the truth for individuals that they can see themselves, hopefully for just a moment, the way someone else sees them. And you are on the core to help get people back to the core of who they are. And we're on this constant evolution. There is no final destination, right? You've successfully exited 2 companies. The what's that you've completed in this world have been very impressive. You've created freedom for yourself, which you articulated was so important for you in so many ways. And you've done that in more ways than just financially. And the only way the financial freedom followed was when you created internal freedom in connection with your wife to truly be able to experience and receive it. So what I'm curious about is, what is your biggest challenge in business right now?
Ooh, such a good one. You know, the biggest challenge, brother, is my own ego. And it's funny, for years I was like, I don't have an ego, which, by the way, we all do. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. There's so much great content and ability to help. And here's what I mean by ego. The social media growth, the podcast growth isn't to where I think it should be. Okay. Why? Why does it matter whether it's grown? And where did this timeline that you created, some self-induced timeline, why? And it's all from comparison. And you know what I get tripped up in, and this is something that I need to continue to improve on. There are messages from some of the people in our sphere that I know them personally, and I know on stage they're one way and off, they are different human beings.
Yeah, brother.
And brother, it bothers me, and it shouldn't. Because the truth is they're helping a lot of people, regardless of if that's their truth or not. And that's the one thing that's tripped me up throughout. And I know it, and I continue to work on it. But it happened yesterday. I was literally on a conference call with somebody, and I've been to dinner with this human being. I've been to their house, and they said, I do, ba, 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 ba. And I was like, But you know what? The people listening, they believed it, and it made them better. And so who am I to judge? And so that's probably the biggest for me, is just letting all that go, surrendering to the fact that if somebody's intent is to help other people, even if it's true or not, why do you care?
Yeah.
And so that's probably my biggest challenge right now.
Well, I would love to reflect something back to you based on that comment, if you don't mind.
Cool.
Okay, I'll ask permission, because although it's my show, you're always here to look good, and this is going to, brother, man, I am here because your truth and your vulnerability is so powerful. I struggle with the exact same thing for a very long time, and I always felt like I was the only one in the room that was trying to actually help people, not just sell product from stage. I think that there was a lot of toxicity, and there still is in lots of places that exist in this space. And I'm not going to call out anybody in particular. what I noticed, it was at a retreat maybe last October, year and a half ago. So October of 2021, not 2022, I guess. I walk into this room expecting to be the only one. And what I was blind to in that moment is that I had both armor and ego walking into the room that was coming from a protectionary place for two reasons. One, for what I really wanted, which was what was best for every individual in that room, and to ensure that they had the best experience and extracted real value from the event that we were all a part of. And two, because I viewed it as if I was fighting it. And the word you used, surrender to it, is beautiful. Because what I realized is, to your point exactly, without judgment, I had to lower my armor and have that soft front and strong spine. And by doing that, what's fascinating is I created a space that was different, that actually opened others to be more authentic and genuine from stage. And so where I'm challenging you is, I think, with your ability to read energy, with your unbelievable access to words and communication, to deliver and land messages, to lead with heart in the way that you do, I actually don't think it's a fight. I think it's an ability for you to influence the energy of a collective room when you're in it, regardless of who's on stage.
It's really well put, man. And again, we are energetic beings, as you know, and, you know, bringing that to the table is influencing people. It is funny, man, as you read energy, and I'm curious for you, Brian. It happened that I was at the Atlanta airport a couple weeks ago, and this guy sits down, man. And for context, I literally read Tao Te Ching every single day of my life. It's like, it's a big part of it, which is the way, and we are all one, and, you know, never really judge someone else for anything, because that's part of you. But this, just the most vile, dark energy I've felt in a long time. And I sitting there trying not to project, trying not to feel anything. And so to your point, we're ever evolving, man. I have a long way to go when that enters the room, not only not feeling a certain way, but not even judging it, but rather just accepting, okay, cool. And how can I show up in a better way? So anyway, it happens all the time. And it's fascinating to me because I've done a ridiculous amount of work. I meditate so much, and yet this is just one of the
so hard. And that's why I'm trying to point it out, because you're talking about it so eloquently. And the reality of it is that, again, this is a perfect representation of where you can control how much you get to win at no expense to others by just choosing to center and remain open and strong in who you are. And the ironic part about what both you and I are trying to get people to do is actually to live the most simplistic, authentic, real life that they've ever lived, like to remove the resistance and have permission to be exactly who they are in every moment, with no apology, and also compassion and empathy and perspective. Like, we want people to fully experience life. And that's the irony, is that life actually beats the life out of most people. But helping people reconnect with who they are is, I believe, where we infuse life back into them.
It's true, man. That empathy thing is something that is ever, it's a search for me to continue to get better at it. It really is, because for years, my wife will tell you, man, solution-based. She just wanted me to hear it, and I'm immediately going to solutions. So that empathy part, and really feeling how someone else, being in their shoes, experiencing how they feel and walking with them. And you can do that. It's a whole different way. And I know that, and I'm good at it sometimes, and other times I could be a whole lot better.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. I mean, again, there's no final destination. What I appreciate is there's people like you who are taking one step every moment, every day, to make sure that you are consistently recentering and growing in who you are. It's a beautiful thing to be with you, my friend. Yes, this is not the end of our relationship. It is just the beginning. And even if I try to run away, now that I know that you're 6'5" and you dance Michael Jackson, I'm not sure I can run away for very long. And brother, man, what are some closing words you like to leave our audience with?
You know, I would leave it with this. To show up as you truly yourself is the most freeing thing. And I want people to really experience that. So my best example is, I told you I'm 6'5". It takes zero time and energy for me to be 6'5". It's just the way God made me. I could tell you I'm 5'5", and with enough time and energy and my back out of alignment, I could probably pull it off. But why? Just be 6'5". And if you can get that, if that lands for you, which I hope it does, because it's so easy just being me. I have so much energy to put towards really positive stuff when I'm just me and not trying to be something that I'm not. So that's the last thing on my heart, brother, because that's what I want for everyone.
I love your heart. I love your soul. I love you, brother. It has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you first on a couple of shows, and we are going to continue to grow from here. For everybody who just tuned in, we are going to have all of JM's information, his incredible podcast, Building Your All-Star Team, his book, Let's Go Win, and really with an outline and a map to be able to show you how to remove those masks and move through those moments. JM is a wealth of knowledge, and he's an accurate read of energy. He can be a reflection to you, to your teams, to your organizations in a way that maybe you don't see yourself so clearly. The trash from our past and the stuff that we bury are the things that we protect behind the masks and the armor we carry. JM is literally helping people recognize and reconnect with who they are. You can do that. You absolutely can accomplish more than you think you're limited on. And there is nothing that's going to keep you from going and winning, especially if you flip your lid and scan your cam.